Hello, welcome to another edition of the Fifth Quarter. I'm Mike Ciarochi, sports editor at Herald-Standard.com, joined as always by George von Benko, author of Memory Lane and a WMBS radio personality. George, we're here today as a kind of a two-pronged fifth quarter. We're going to look back maybe a little briefly, at least, at the Steelers' loss at San Francisco, and we're looking ahead to Saturday's home game against the St. Louis Rams.
And the lights are on here.
The lights?
That had to be an interesting situation.
It was, I'd say interesting would be, very appropriate.
Right.
I will say this, and not to talk trash on anyone else, but I had it tweeted on my Twitter account 1 minute before Steelers Digest had it on their account. So we got the news out.
See, but I was watching the game on television, so I knew the lights were out before you guys even did.
But no, if you had been following me, you would have known what the heck's going on with the lights.
Right.
I would. My daughter.
Well, that's probably true. Probably better than listening to John Sutcliffe, who was doing the sideline reporting for ESPN, you couldn't understand what he was saying.
The one person who had a worse weekend in San Francisco than Ben Roethlisberger, I believe.
I can't believe that network spent that much money for the rights to NFL games and would do something like that.
No.
But that's another story for another time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it didn't turn out the way we thought.
No. I guess we
both thought that Pittsburgh was going to pull it out.
If Ben played, they had a better chance of winning. I'm not so sure I agree with that in hindsight now.
I think they may have had a better chance if they had played Charlie.
Like anybody else, Ben was just he hobbled around as best he could, threw for over 300 yards, but it was just there was too much conspiring against the Steelers in that game, not the least of which was the quality and talent of the San Francisco 49ers.
They got after him pretty good. I still thought the defense played well enough to win the game for Pittsburgh in some respects. I thought the one call on Lawrence Timmons was absolutely horrible on the field goal attempt.
Right, but I will say this. Troy Polamalu did not have anywhere near his best game. The defense in general gave up the 2 touchdown drives in the second half that I just think, you give up 20 points, it's iffy whether you win.
Well, but it should have been 16. That field goal attempt, that was a terrible. And plus, I thought that the call on Keenan Lewis, he was blocked into that guy on the punt return.
What do you mean it should have been 16? I don't get that.
Well, I mean, you take away a touchdown and just give them a field goal, it's 16 instead of 20.
Yeah, but they didn't do that.
I'm saying that the field goal attempt should have stood. They got the touchdown after the penalty. That allowed them to get a touchdown after that.
Yeah, and who's the guy that used to be the head of NFL officials, Mike Pereira?
Yeah, and he downplayed it pretty good too.
He said right away that was a bad call. They shouldn't have.
He also said the call on Keenan Lewis was a bad call on the punt return. He was blocked into the guy,
right?
Which would have given the ball to the Steelers at the 20-yard line.
Well, as Mike Tomlin said right after the game. The officiating, he repeated it again at his press conference several hours after the game. The officiating didn't cost us the game. It was their level of play that cost us.
Well, and there were a lot of things. But getting back to Roethlisberger playing, though, after I started watching him, I felt right away that they should have put Batch in the game. Yeah. He couldn't follow through on a step into a throw. That's what caused the one to go high and be intercepted. He couldn't move around. He was constantly looking, not to get his foot stepped on. And plus, I talked to some people, and all week long, Charlie Batch had taken every snap in practice, and they put in some packages for him, shovel passes to Hines Ward and some other and they didn't use any of that in the game.
No. Well, they didn't have him in the game.
Well, I know, but, it seems to me a lot of wasted preparation for,
Well, but you had to do something, and there's 2-hour plus practices.
And hindsight is 20/20, but I think they would have had a better shot, maybe winning that football game with Charlie in there.
Yeah, in hindsight, sure, I would agree with that. They'd have had a better shot with somebody else. But let's bring that forward. What do you do with Ben? Do you sit Ben this week, or do you play Ben?
Well, there are several reports that are out. NFL Network, and I don't know where they got it. It was reporting yesterday that in conversations with several Steeler officials, they said that there's absolutely no way that Ben would play in the last 2 ball games. Well, that was news to Ben Roethlisberger and Charlie Batch when I talked to them.
I thought it was news to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, so I don't know where that came from. Ben has said that he's not going to quit. He's going to continue to play. He did not look good, yes, and he's not going to practice.
He also said it's a coach's decision.
It is.
It's not his.
Well, that sort of goes against the grain, too, because Mike Tomlin, in his post-game press conference, said that he listened to what Ben had to say and decided to go.
Ben kept him in. Ben kept himself in
the game. So I don't know who to believe in that regard, because Ben defended the coach for that. Getting back to the point, though, that remains to be seen what's going to happen on Saturday. And there's a lot. And plus, they're banged up in other areas. The running backs are all banged up. Rashard Mendenhall's got bad ribs. Weldy Moore is out with a knee injury. There's a good chance they're going to re-sign John Clay from the practice squad and move him up.
So you need an extra.
You need an extra back.
One's down. You need another guy in there just to maybe take care of you.
And Pouncey looked good, so I think he's going to play. So that'll solidify the offensive line a little bit. But they are playing a 2-win football team, and the coach is on the hot seat.
That's kind of gets to my point. If you can't beat both St. Louis this Saturday and a week from Sunday, if you can't beat the Cleveland Browns, even though it is on the road, if you can't win those 2 games, you don't deserve the wild card berth, let alone a chance of winning the division and getting the overall number 1 seed.
And let's talk about that. When they landed, everything had broken right for them when they landed in San Francisco. The Ravens had gotten beat. Houston had lost.
We were there in time to watch that game.
And so everything really broke their way as far as...
by the time they landed, they were in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were in the playoffs because Tennessee had gotten beat, and that put them in automatically. But they had their destiny in their own hands, and it just didn't work out that way. That being said, when I was talking to guys at practice, 2 games still to be played, and with the way things have broken this NFL season, anything can happen. I mean, Cincinnati could need that last game against Baltimore to get into the playoffs.
Nothing against the Cleveland Browns, but I don't give them much of a chance this week against the Ravens. As much because of what happened to the Ravens last week as
they're going to be
this week. Yeah, they'll be pretty much hell bent on righting their own ship, regardless of who the opposition is.
But Cincinnati could be a different story. Yes, that could be a very meaningful game for them.
Very big game for the Cincinnati Bengals, hosting, as they will, the Baltimore Ravens on New Year's Day.
But all that did, as far as the players were concerned, is just exemplified the point they're trying to make. Hey, we have 2 games left. We just have to take care of our own business.
Yeah. And, if the players, as I mentioned earlier in the week, if the playoffs were to start today, which they do not, if the playoffs were to start today, the Steelers would be looking at a road game at the Tim Tebow-led Denver Broncos.
Yeah, exactly. And,
by the time the regular season ends, even if the Steelers are still a wild card, there could be a change of venue out to San Diego.
Well, San Diego's coming on like gangbusters right now, which is normally the way they do things at the end of the season. They always seem to do that. Getting to St. Louis, Steve Spagnuolo's on the hot seat. Sam Bradford is out. They've had 14 players on injured reserve this year. They have been really snake-bit. Kellen Clemens is the quarterback, and they do have 3 very good running backs, Steven Jackson, Cadillac Williams, and Jarius Norwood. They run the ball very, very good, so Pittsburgh's going to have to shut down the run. The defense has played well, even though they're last against the run. Chris Long's having a career year with sacks, so they got to protect the quarterback. And I really like the linebacker, James Laurinaitis, the kid from Ohio State. So, I mean, the defense has played well enough for them to win some games. They've had some problems because they just have been decimated on offense with injuries.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a learning curve too when you got a relatively young quarterback in there at Bradford. Took over from Mark Bolger, I believe, when Bolger was eventually let go, or was
he was let go. Yeah.
So there's a bit of a learning curve there, I'm sure, and the coach. It doesn't matter how many players get hurt if you pile up losses quicker than you pile up wins, and at a rate of 2 to 14. Is that what they are? 2 and 4? No,
They're
2 and 12.
2 and 12.
2 and 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll put a lot of good coaches on.
And I watched them in their game against Cincinnati, and they played well for about 3 quarters. But as the announcers said, they started making some mistakes on special teams, making some breakdowns on offense, giving up field position. And that's been their MO the entire season. They've shot themselves in the foot more.
No, you know what else? When you have injuries that affect your starting lineup, it trickles down. It's a definite trickle down.
You mean the standard's not the standard out there?
No, that's not what I mean. No, I'm just saying that if the next guy steps in on offense or defense, the guy who's filling in on special teams could be a street guy. He could have been, walking the street looking for work a week earlier. Now he's playing special teams for the St. Louis Rams.
Yeah. So, but you're absolutely right. This is a game they're playing St. Louis at home. They lose this game. Yeah. I mean, it's
it's kind of a shame if they were to lose this game or the last game of the year at Cleveland. The league should have the right to withdraw the playoff berth that they had earned, because if they lose to either one of these teams, they don't deserve to go to the playoffs.
Now, in the school of thought, there's a debate raging in Pittsburgh right now on talk radio. Should Ben rest and get ready for the playoffs, and then they're assured pretty much of being the seed that's going to have to go on the road, or should they play with the hopes that Baltimore gets beat and you maybe make yourself either a first or second seed or second or third seed? Well, there's a lot of talk about that. And
what's your opinion?
I didn't like the way he looked. I would like to see them, particularly this game, play Charlie.
You know what though? I see where you're coming from, and I'm not saying I totally disagree, but you can't make up for last week's mistakes this week.
No, you can't.
If Ben is the quarterback, as long as he is healthy enough to lace up his shoes, go out on the field, they're going to play it.
My question was, I looked at him and I didn't think he was healthy enough.
Maybe he shouldn't have played last week. I'll grant you that. Maybe that was a mistake. But to sit him this week because he didn't play well last week is compounding the issue. I think it's beside the point.
As I'm saying, I'm just going by watching him down there, and he was limping around again, and he's not going to. Now today's the last day that they're going to practice. Hopefully he might be able to practice today. And plus you got another. Lamar Woodley hasn't practiced this week either. So you're hurting at linebacker. They're just a banged up. They're just a banged up football team.
Yeah,
the unrepentant James Harrison. They get back.
He's back. He had some interesting tweets during
the broadcast. He did have some interesting tweets. Yes, but that's another story as well.
Yeah.
So
who do you like this week?
I like the Steelers at home. I mean, if they lose at home,
pick a score.
Turn out the lights on your way out.
Oh yeah. Too bad they can't rescind that playoff berth.
Exactly.
But okay, so we're both picking the Steelers in a big win. I don't think the score matters.
I don't think it does either. And we're going to wish everybody a very happy holiday.
Very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And with that, we'll wrap up this edition of the fifth quarter. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.